So I think that safety, first of all, when we're dealing with things like helium and gas, there are definite protocols for how do you handle that and how do you keep things safe, and transport as well. And I know that there are a lot of things that the program as a whole are doing to make sure that nobody has to transport the helium over long distances and anything to worry about safety with that. But it's important to still be really aware, about handling the helium and safety related to that. I think that it's also important anytime you're doing a field campaign that's really of interest to people, whether it's unmanned or uncrewed aerial vehicles or balloons or anything, that you have kind of a safety zone around where you're going to do your launch for spectators, because there's always, it's likely that you may have some spectators, and those spectators can be distracting for the people that are doing the operations. So it's really important to have marked off a safety zone for that. And then just to help with the spectators, it's really nice to have someone who's an information source for them. As a minimum, it could be some posters for them to read or something like that. But what would be great is to have sort of a designated, I'm going to say public relations, but it doesn't have to be thought of that name, but somebody who can stand there and kind of narrate and give information and talk about what the different pieces are and all. I think that's an important part of the safety, to have the public, be far enough away that they're not going to get hurt by anything. I think another piece of this safety, which may or may not come into play, has to do with weather. If you're doing, you need to be aware of what the protocols are going to be if there's lightning and other kinds of weather hazards like that, whether it's likely in that area at that time of the year. And of course, what the weather reports are leading right up to the moment of the balloon launch. But I think there are also other safety hazards that are related to weather, like if it's particularly hot that day, then you need to make sure and have water so that the team and everybody are well hydrated. You need to make sure you have sunscreen and shade protection. And when we're talking eclipses, you need to make sure and have eye protection too for the eclipses, because in a lot of cases, you'll be launching the balloons, but then there will also be a lot of, just on the ground observations. And so everybody needs to make sure that they have the right glasses or the right protective glass that they're using to take pictures or for their own personal observations. And so that's going to be another really important part of the safety for the total eclipse as well. So we use safety manuals for any kind of extensive field campaign that we do, and we also do uncrewed aircraft systems and of course these balloon campaigns. And what the safety manual contains is it actually has a lot of information in it that most of which you hope doesn't get used, the day of the campaign. But it'll start off with just the contact information for everybody on the team. So that's cell phones and, all kinds of stuff. And not just everybody on the team that's in the field, but anybody that you would need to call back at the university. And so it includes all that contact information. It also includes, the location and the kind of general plans for the day and protocols, not the detailed step-by-step, although that could be in there too. Might include the flight string. If somebody comes up from the FAA and says, what all do you have here? It's really great if you can just open a book and say, here's the flight string and the details. And maybe that doesn't fall under safety, but maybe it does. It's just really important to have, that kind of information handy and available. Usually if there's special safety things about an area, if somebody has rattlesnakes where they're going to be launching from or something like that, there might be some information like that, that's in a safety manual, and certainly information about heat stroke, what are the symptoms and all, if it's going to be a hot day, so that, people would be able to recognize that. And typically, one of the things that's also in the safety manual at the back, so the front list is all the people on the team, the back list is all the emergency numbers. So it's the local air traffic control if you're doing unmanned aircraft systems, or where the local hospitals are, or just anything like that. And again, that's the information that you hope you never have to use, but in a moment that you need it, you really want to have it like a very, very accessible place. And um, so that's often what we have in the safety manual. I'm trying to think if there are any other particular items. I think that if you have any special needs, and this could also be something like, we might have somebody that has special dietary needs, and while you're doing a big long campaign, you're always keeping people fed and hydrated and stuff like that. So if there's special dietary needs or allergies, I think the safety manual might include some information about that as well, just so that it's anything that might be helpful in responding. And it's also good to have it done really early so that when you're doing your final rehearsal and maybe even a couple practices before that, you have it there as just kind of part of the normal operations, that it's always kind of right there, you
Um,
know.
yeah, I think in fact, let me just start off by saying one of the most important things for every balloon launch is safety of all of the people involved, especially all the students. No, I shouldn't even say especially everybody involved, whether it's the people who are launching the balloon or the people that the balloon lands on. I mean, anybody who's involved, safety first, absolutely. And so we another checklist we have is a checklist of all of the sort of things we bring along from a safety perspective. For example, a first aid kit is essential, just in case, and somebody hopefully who knows some basic first aid. But maybe even more mundane than that is just having snacks and having water, because sometimes you're out hiking in the woods, and in the summertime it can be very hot and exhausting. And students who are really excited about being part of this don't always, well, especially if you leave at 4:30 in the morning, don't eat breakfast. And so just having basic, snacks, granola bars, cookies, chips, whatever. I usually bring a cooler of drinks and especially water. And then whenever we send people out to find payloads, we always make sure that they take some water with them. And then, more important, perhaps than the food or the hydration, is communication. And so, any team that goes out to find payloads, first of all, they should not, they do not go alone. You always send at least two people, buddy system, or more often half a dozen people, and carrying equipment, for example, a long pole and stuff like that if they're going out into the woods. And also walkie talkies so that they can be communicating with each other if they do decide to split up a little bit, and communicating back with the home base in case they need something else. And so, walkie talkies and water and all the basic recovery equipment would be an essential part of keeping everybody safe, in a recovery operation. And then I'll add one more, which is sometimes a little scary, but we actually have a set of neon orange vests, and whenever it's any time like hunting season, well, first of all, we avoid that if possible. But I do get my students to wear, bright colored vests just in case, when they go into the woods.